I'm Bernie Leaving, Congregational Care Pastor here at Palma, Ceia United Methodist. Welcome to this week's edition of our PrayerCast. You are hearing my voice and not seeing me as you usually do, because as you listen to me today, I am in Halifax, Nova Scotia, aboard the Brilliance of the Sea, a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, along with about over 20 other folks from Palma, Ceia and Hyde Park United Methodist and other churches and groups in the area on a cruise that includes the lecturing by Dr. Jim Harnish, retired pastor from Hyde Park United Methodist, concerning Roger Williams, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, and what it meant for us to be the people that we are today. 5 of us left Tampa. It would be a week ago yesterday, came to Boston, and spent from Tuesday evening until Friday evening viewing the historic sites and monuments of Boston and the surrounding area. We visited Paul Revere's home. We saw his tombstone. We saw the statue of Paul Revere and Samuel Adams. We visited the Old North Church, and there I was surprised to see the plaque that John Wesley's brother, Charles, was there in the Old North Church. The thing about the Old North Church is, of course, the fact that even though it was very much an Anglican congregation, pro-British, it was from the tower of that church that Paul Revere's friends hung the 2 lamps that we remember, one by land, 2 of which the British troops crossed the river then to move into Lexington and Concord. We visited Lexington and Concord and saw the village green in Lexington. In fact, we did see some fall pillars in Lexington, more than we've actually seen up here in the upper part of Maine. But the Minuteman statue at Lexington there reminds us of the first encounter between the British regulars and the Minutemen. And then we visited Concord and the Old North Bridge, where actually for the first time the Minutemen returned the fire of the British. And that's actually the beginning, what is called the beginning of the war. You can see pictures from the British side looking across the bridge, and you can see pictures from the American side looking back across toward the British soldiers. And then there is the tombstone where the 5 or 6 British soldiers who were killed were buried there. Roger Williams, the founder of Rhode Island, was a person who believed in freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, the separation of church and state. He was kicked out of the Massachusetts colony because of that, banished, in fact, and went down in the dead of winter, being kept alive by the Native Americans, the Indians that knew him well and trusted him and honored him. And he went all the way to what today is Providence, Rhode Island, and founded that community, and eventually got the charter for Rhode Island. The people who were in Boston and Salem, Plymouth, in those areas were not very accommodating of any kind of expression other than their own. In some cases, the Anglican, in other cases, the Puritans, particularly the Puritans who were in charge in Boston, would banish people, particularly hard on, of course, those who had no faith, but also on people of faith that worshiped differently than they did. So we've not always had great freedom of religion in this country, nor have we had separation of church and state. The church and the state were inextricably intertwined in those early colonies and were accountable to each other. It was quite a time in Boston and the surrounding area, Lexington and Concord, and to see all the statues and all of the other things that remind us of the freedoms that we enjoy today. I did not go in, but I visited the Fremont Temple Baptist Church, which had the sign outside that said it was the first integrated church in America. one of the things that intrigued me was the difference between the thought of what Boston looked like back then, what those statues commemorate, and the picture that I took of the night scene, seeing the lights of downtown Boston and reflection on the water outside the hotel where we were staying. And then we left Boston and started cruising north. I love the sunset over Boston, and the next day the sunrise in Rockland, Maine. We visited there and went to Rockport, Maine. Again, just looking at the scenery, there is no color. They said that they've had an extraordinary warm summer, and therefore that the leaves have just not yet begun to turn. In fact, I took some pictures today in Bar Harbor, Maine, of summer flowers still greatly in bloom here. They've not even had a frost or a freeze here that would kill the summer blooming plants. Sunrises, by the way, along coming up the Maine coast have just been absolutely spectacular, and again is a reminder of this great earth which God has created and with which God continues to bless us. From the sunrise to the sunset several nights ago, the moon, the phase that it's in, very clear in the sky, and I just moved the camera from the setting sun to the sky and took the moon. And this is such a beautiful place up here, the world that God has created, and we need to always give thanks for it. Above all, we need to give thanks for who we are today as a country, as a nation, as a people, all of it coming out of those first roots that were formed in Boston and the surrounding areas, and then down into Providence, Rhode Island, our expression of freedom of religion and separation of church and state. And for all of that, we indeed need to be very grateful. I want to thank you for listening to me today without seeing me there in the sanctuary as you usually do. And know that you all are in my prayers, and I ask that God would bless you through the rest of this week, and pray that you will be in church someplace this week. Take care. God bless you.